Hi, my name is Christina, and today I'm presenting my quantitative research project, First Generation College Students and Depression. I chose this topic because I'm a first generation college student myself, and I wanted to learn about the experiences of other first gen students and how they navigate higher education. First generation students face a lot of unique challenges as they progress in their education, such as not having the financial means to do so, or not having support from family or friends, and just a lack of general knowledge of how to apply for college, what kind of resources are available, and other challenges. And I wanted to see if any of those impact mental health in first generation students. How does the generational status of college students affect levels of depression? That's my research question, and my hypothesis is first generation college students experience increased symptoms of depression compared to non first generation students. People with an annual household income below 60,000 also experience increased levels of depression compared to those with income greater than 60,000. Additionally, people of color also experience increased symptoms compared to their white peers. And for my first source, I chose a popular article from Los Angeles Times titled, "At UCLA, a dorm floor dedicated to first-generation students." This was published in 2017. And in this article, first-generation students were interviewed, and they spoke of their experiences on campus. And many of them reported feelings of inferiority or isolation because of their first-generation status. And this led students to create a support community on their own based on similar struggles that they've experienced throughout their higher education path. And for my first academic source, associations with academic achievement and negative emotional states among urban college students. This article explores the barriers to success in college and how those disproportionately affect people of color and people of a lower socioeconomic status. And for my final source, first generation undergraduate students, social support, depression, and life satisfaction. They reported that first generation students experience a lack of family and financial support, academic anxiety and academic performance, and higher levels of depression. And something to note that was interesting that was reported in this study, children of parents who have no higher education perceive stress differently, and they develop different coping mechanisms to stress, more of like a disengagement coping mechanism, and they're also less optimistic compared to students whose parents or grandparents have attended college. And this led me to revise my research question. Instead of using socioeconomic status, I switched that to annual household income, which is now my control variable, because that was easier to measure, and that's something that was noted in both academic articles, that measuring socioeconomic status was more difficult and not a strong indicator due to the way that they gathered their research. And for my first variable, my dependent variable, depression, I defined that as feelings of sadness, guilt, and a lack of self-worth that are severe enough to interfere with work, school, socializing, and enjoying life. And the way I constructed this in my survey on Qualtrics, I constructed a matrix with 10 statements, and 6 of those statements had a positive connotation, 4 of them had, 6 had a negative connotation, and 4 had a positive connotation. And respondents were given 4 options to choose to describe how they related to those statements. And those statements included things like, I feel sad when I wake up in the morning, or a positive one would be, I feel supported by my family and friends. And so the responses that they could choose from were coded as 0 for never, 1 as sometimes, 2 for most of the time, and 3 all of the time. And so when I cleaned this data and ran the analysis, I removed all of the positive statements, and I only included the negative statements. And I averaged the negative statements' responses, and that created a score that ranged from 0 to 3 that indicated their level of depression. So 0 for 1 indicated mild level of depression, 1 to 2 moderate, and 2 to 3 as severe. And for my independent variable, first generation college student, That survey question had the research definition included. So the question on the survey was structured as: a first-generation college student is defined as a person attending college whose parents have never attended or graduated from a four-year college or university. Are you a first-generation college student? And those responses that they were given were yes, no, and unsure. 0 for non-first generation, and 1 for yes, first generation, 98 for unsure, and 99 for no response. And moving on to my control variables, the first one that I chose was annual household income, which I defined as a family's economic status, which is measured by the amount of money made through wages and investments within a household in 1 year. And this question on the survey was divided into brackets of income, starting at 0, then going to 1 to 20,000, and increasing in increments of 20,000 up until 100,000 and more. And any responses that were $60,000 or less were coded as 0, and $60,000 and $60,001, those are coded as 1. And for my second control variable, race and ethnicity, I defined that as the social construction of a category or multiple categories that an individual identifies with to best describe region of origin, culture, and physical characteristics. And respondents were given, I believe, 7 options to choose from, and they could select as many as they wanted. And those were coded as 0 for anyone who identified as a person of color or biracial, and 1 for anyone who identified as white. And moving on to my data analysis, the descriptive statistics. Based on the levels of measurement of my 4 variables, mode, median, and mean, were only appropriate to report for level of depression, and all of my other variables, my 3 independents, are discrete, and therefore only mode should be reported. And it's interesting to note that for levels of depression, respondents' actual scores ranged from 0.0 to 2.67 out of a possible score of 0 to 3. And over half of the respondents were first-generation college students, and 56% fell below $60,000 for their annual household income, and 56.8% of the respondents reported that they were a person of color or biracial. And the average level of depression of the respondents was 1.1295. And for my second portion of the data analysis, I chose to do a 2-tailed hypothesis test because my independent variable, first generation students, is divided into 2 subsamples that were then compared to each other to see if they were statistically significant, if there was a difference between those 2 groups. And looking at my data, the significance for both of those were below 0.05 of the criterion level. So there is no statistically significant difference between those 2 groups, first gen and not, and their levels of depression. And for the third and final portion of my data analysis, I ran bivariate and multivariate regressions. And for the constant for the bivariate regression, the unstandardized beta was 1.105, and the significance 0.000. First generation status, the unstandardized beta in the bivariate regression, 0.109, and the significance of 0.167. And moving on to multivariate, the constant unstandardized beta, 1.208, and a significance of 0.000. And first generation status unstandardized beta, 1.54, annual household income unstandardized beta, negative 0.069, and race and ethnicity, the final variable, negative 0.192. And looking at the significance levels for all of those variables, race and ethnicity was the only one that had a significant effect on the constant, my dependent variable level of depression. The significance level for that was 0.023, and to interpret that, that shows that people identifying as white had a lower level of depression by 0.192 compared to people who are not non-white or biracial. And to conclude, none of my data analyses showed any statistically significant relationship between my original research hypothesis. There's no relationship between generational status and symptoms of depression, and of all of the predictor variables, race and ethnicity was the only one that was statistically significant. And if someone were to conduct this research in the future, I'd recommend that they explore deeper into why race and ethnicity contribute to depressive symptoms and what sociological factors contribute to that. I would also recommend to measure level of depression in a different way, perhaps more in-depth or through a face-to-face interview to incorporate that into the study. And finally, I'd also recommend measuring socioeconomic status instead of annual household income, because that is a stronger indicator of someone's status based on things like where they live, the type of school that they went to, and their income. All of those factors definitely contribute to the experiences that people go through in life. And that is my presentation. Thank you.